Hello students! In this video we are going to take a look at how we solve and graph two-step inequalities. So I just want you to remember when we were solving two-step equations, we were using an equal sign. So with inequalities, the only difference is there's going to be no equal sign. Instead, we're going to use signs like less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. Now, when it comes to solving inequalities, the steps and the methods are very similar. The only difference is we're going to have these different symbols. So, things to remember. You are going to follow the same steps for solving two-step equations when you solve inequalities. So for example, if you notice that there's addition, to undo the addition, we are going to do subtraction. If there's subtraction, to undo subtraction, we do addition. To undo multiplication, we do division, those kinds of things. So those are going to stay the same. And another really, really big rule. I'm going to star this one because it's very, very important. If you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you must reverse the inequality symbol. Now, here's two really quick examples of what I'm talking about. So here's a little one-step inequality. Let's say we have x over 4 is greater than or equal to 2. Now, like I said, the steps are the same. So we still want to isolate our variable, which is x, right? And in this case, I have division because I'm doing x divided by negative 4. Now, what that means is I need to undo the division. And to do that, I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 4, right? So when I do that, multiply both sides by negative 4, the one on the left is going to cancel because I have one in the numerator and one in the denominator. And the one on the right, I'm going to multiply by 2 to get negative 8. So on the left, all I have left is x. And on the right, all I have left is negative 8. However, since I multiplied by a negative number, this sign is going to flip. And by flip, I mean instead of it being greater than or equal to, it's now going to be less than or equal to. Now, this only happens when you multiply or divide by a negative. So since the number I was multiplying to both sides was negative, that's when I'm going to flip the sign. And then another really quick example is if I have negative 2x is less than 4, again, I'm going to undo the multiplication with division. So this one I started with division and I'm going to undo it with multiplication. Now I have multiplication, I'm going to undo it with division, right? So now I'm going to divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. This negative 2 on the left will cancel, but once again, I am multiplying. It's if you multiply or divide. So since now I'm dividing by a negative, again, my sign is going to flip. Okay, so now since it's less than and I divided by a negative, it's going to end up being x is greater than 4 divided by negative 2, which is negative 2. Okay, so see how when I multiply by a negative or divide by a negative, I'm flipping that symbol. Example number 1. So we are going to solve the inequality, and then we are going to graph the solution on a number line. So remember, a number line is just a line that continues on in both directions. And we have these little tick marks, and we're going to fill those in with numbers once we know what our solution is. So again, our main goal, we need to isolate our variable. We need to get our variable, which in this case is x, all by itself. Now, right now, it's not by itself because I have a lot of other things going on. So what we're going to do first is we are going to, since I see subtraction here, I'm going to do the opposite of subtraction, which is addition. So I'm going to add 11 to both sides. So when I do that, the negative 11 and positive 11 are going to cancel each other out. And then on the left-hand side, I'll be left with 3x. My sign isn't going to change because I didn't divide or multiply by a negative. And then negative 20 plus 11 is negative 9. So then my last step, remember that once I get to this point, my x isn't quite by itself. So since I have multiplication on the left-hand side, I need to undo this multiplication with division. So I'm going to divide both sides by positive 3. When I do that, the 3's are going to cancel on the left. And what I'm going to be left with is x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Now again, my sign isn't going to change because I didn't divide by a negative number, I divided by a positive number. So that is the important takeaway. And then this is my final answer. X is greater than or equal to negative 3. Now what I need to do is I need to put this on my number line, okay? Because part of it says solve and graph, right? We need to graph the solution. So first what I'm going to do, since my solution has a negative 3, I'm going to make sure negative 3 is on my number line. Now from there, you can add some more numbers. I can do negative 1. I'm going to skip by 1. This is positive 1. This is 3, negative 5. And I'm only skipping because there's not a lot of room. Okay. And then because this is greater than or equal to, if I have the little line under my inequality, there's going to be, I'm going to put a circle at negative 3, and then the line tells me that this circle is closed. So I'm going to color it in. So that circle should be completely colored in, or as good as you can get it. Mine's going to have a little bit of holes, but for the most part, it's colored in. Now, the greater than, this kind of points to which direction I'm going to be shading on my number line. So because it's greater than negative 3, I know that all of the numbers need to be above negative 3, right? So I'm going to shade this direction on my number line. Now, I did it in red, so it's easy to see. You can make your line a little bit thicker if you want. Or another way that I've seen it is to kind of do a line above like this, just so that it's easy to see. Either way, it doesn't matter. As long as your arrow and line points to the right and you know when to leave the circle open and when to close it. Okay, let's do another example. So for this one, same thing. Even though it's a different variable, I still need to solve for the variable and graph my solution. So I'm going to graph on my number line once again. Okay, so again, in order to get y by itself, I need to handle this negative 20 and this 2 that are hanging out over here with the y, right? So I have minus 20, which means to do the opposite, I need to add 20. Now remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to add 20 to both sides. On the left, the negative 20 and the positive 20 will cancel. I'm going to have y divided by 2 is less than negative 23 plus 20. So I'm going to end up with negative 3 on the right-hand side. Now notice, again, I didn't flip the sign because I didn't multiply or divide by a negative number. Now, I have to get rid of this 2 in the denominator. So, this is technically division. Whenever I have a number in the denominator, I was dividing. So to undo my division, I need to multiply by 2. Now, here's a little trick that I like to tell my students to do. If this confuses you, remember that I'm technically multiplying by 2 over 1. Any whole number I can put over 1, right? So this kind of just helps me visualize when I cancel out the 2 in the numerator and the 2 in the denominator, that this one was in fact in the numerator. And then don't forget, I'm going to multiply by 2 on the right-hand side as well. So these 2's are going to cancel, like we said. And I didn't multiply by a negative number, so my sign is going to stay the same. Y is less than negative 6. So once again, I need to fill in my number line. So let's make this negative 6. Now don't forget, when I go to the right, these numbers need to get larger. So then I'm going to say negative 4, because negative 4 is bigger than negative 6. Negative 2, and again, I'm going to count by 2's just because I don't have a lot of room. Now, once again, I'm going to put a circle on the number that is in my solution. So I'm going to put a circle on negative 6. However, this is not less than or equal to. So when it's just less than, my circle is going to stay open. Now, once again, the less than is kind of telling me, don't forget to box your answers. I forgot. But it's kind of showing me which direction to put my arrow. So I am going to put my arrow to the left because my solution is less than negative 6. So this is what your graph should look like. Once again, you can make it a little bolder if you want, just to make it very clear that y is less than negative 6. All right, let's keep going. Got a few more examples for you. Okay, so for this one, same sort of idea. I got to isolate the x. I'm going to start by subtracting 31 on both sides. Subtract 31. Again, positive and negative 31 are going to cancel. So I will have negative 3x is less than negative 6, right? Because 25 minus 31 is negative 6. Now watch this. In order to isolate my x, right now I have negative 3 times x, right? So I'm going to need to divide by negative 3 on both sides. This will cancel, but I need to, this division by negative 3 is telling me to flip the sign. So very important for you to recognize when you are multiplying and dividing by a negative when to flip the sign, okay? So I'm going to end up with x is now greater than, because it was less than, now it's going to be greater than positive 2. So let's put, don't forget to box your answer. So let's put 2 on our number line. And let's go 4, 6. This is going to be 0, negative 2, so on and so forth. We are going to put a circle at 2. We're going to leave it open because it's not greater than or equal to. It's just greater than. and then we are going to shade it to the right because it's greater than. All right, so this one's a little trickier. Not much trickier, but a little trickier. And the only reason why is because before I start solving, I need to combine some like terms. So if you notice, just looking, I've got 5x and 7x on the left-hand side. And remember, if the variables match, I can put those together, right? So what I'm going to end up with on the left-hand side is 12x minus 8 is greater than 40. Okay, so be careful with these. Sometimes you may have to combine like terms or simplify before you start solving. So once again, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. These are going to cancel. I'm going to move this up here so I don't run out of room. Then what I have left is 12x is greater than 48. Now to undo multiplication, I need to divide both sides by 12. The 12 will cancel. And then I'm going to be left with x is greater than 4. Now again, notice I didn't flip the sign because I divided by a positive number, not a negative. So let's put 4 on our number line. And you can put all the numbers in there if you want. I usually tell my students that they need to put at least 2 numbers on the number line above and below the number that you solved for or the number in your solution so that I know that you know what numbers are lower and greater than that number. So just put a few on there. Just let your teacher know that you know what the number line should look like. Then again, we're going to put a circle at 4. And this symbol is telling me greater than. So I am going to go to the right. Now again, if that's confusing you, just look at where the arrow is pointing. Notice it's pointing to the right. Don't forget to box your answer. Okay, last example. So this one's a little tricky again. It's got one more extra step that we need to be careful of. Now remember, whenever we are simplifying expressions or solving equations and you see something like this, where you have a -2 outside of a binomial or what we call the quantity x minus 5, you need to distribute the -2 through the parentheses, okay? And when we do that, we're going to end up with -8 is less than or equal to, I'm going to do -2 times x, which is -2x, and then -2 times -5, which is 10. Now I've simplified the right-hand side and I can solve my inequality. So I'm going to subtract 10. Now don't let this confuse you. What this is -8 minus 10, which is going to be -18, is less than or equal to -2x. Now I need to divide both sides by -2. Uh-oh. I'm dividing by a negative. Remember what that means? That means flip the sign. Yay! So when I flip the sign, my new inequality is going to be 9, because -18 divided by -2 is 9, positive 9, is greater than or equal to x. My -2 is canceled. Now, I don't want this to confuse you because now our variable's on the right-hand side. Now, if I were to flip the entire equation, this would read x is less than or equal to 9. So you can kind of read it backwards if you want. Notice that the symbol is pointing toward x, which means x is the smaller and 9 is the larger. So if that's confusing you, you can just flip it around and you can write it like this, where the variable is on the left. Just make sure that the bigger side is pointing toward the 9 in both of these. Okay? Last step, got a graph. So 9, we'll do 11, 13, this is 7, 5, so on and so forth. Now I'm going to have a closed circle at 9 because this is less than or equal to, right? So I got to color that in. And then since it's less than, I'm going to go to the left. Ooh, that was a bad line. But you get the point. All right. So that is how you do these. The big takeaways, just make sure that you remember when to flip your inequality sign when you multiply and divide by a negative number. Good luck with your practice, and don't forget to ask for help if you need it.